Hey there, it is Crystal Green. Today is September 7th of 2021, and this is my Bible reading. I have been overwhelmed with schedules and all sorts of stuff, but besides that, I did get my Bible reading done for yesterday and today. So that's what I'm going to be discussing. Excuse me, Ecclesiastes 12 through Songs of Solomon 2 was yesterday's reading, and then today's reading is supposed to be Songs of Solomon chapter 3 through chapter 5. First and foremost, yesterday's reading. Excuse me, the preacher sought to find acceptable words, and what was written was upright, words of truth. The words of the wise are like goads, Goads, and the words of scholars are like well-driven nails, given by one shepherd. And further, my son, be admonished by these. Of making many books there is no end, and much study is wearisome to the flesh. That is Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verses 10 through 12. And do my best to keep this kind of short today. Listening and reading this and reading it a couple of times and just staying in this version, mind you, the New King James Version, reading it, first and foremost, I had to start thinking my pastors, at our church, whether they are early childhood, high school and middle school, or as a senior pastor over the whole church, all three of them preach out of the Bible. They reference and utilize the Bible. They don't adjust it. It doesn't suit to their needs or to what their message they're trying to do. They preach out of the Bible, right? So they're going from the Word. These words that they use coming out of the Bible, they are acceptable. They are upright, and they are the truth because they are preaching straight out of the Bible. There's no question. And I really appreciate and respect that. There is no adjusting of the information that's in there to make sure that it suits their sermon. No, they are connected to God. They listen. I have wonderful leadership. For the pastoral leadership is fantastic at my church. And I started thinking, how many churches don't have that? How many churches do not have that? And how do you know if your pastor is preaching out of the Bible? By being in the Bible yourself, right? Be in the Bible yourself too. It's really important. I love this goad. I had to read the definition because goad, you think of, oh, he's goading me into an argument, or they are goading me into this position. And I don't like it. It's usually almost like a combative thing, is what my definition in my head, or how I've learned of this word in the past, and I had to look it up. And it is something that urges or stimulates into action. It's not a negative thing. It's urging you. So when it's saying the words of the wise are urging you into action, and the words of scholars are like well-driven nails. So they are solid, they're secure, they're in there. Great foundation. Great foundation. And still, just thinking about this, making many books, there is no end, and much study is wearisome to the flesh. We can make plans to study, guide, and speak or preach from the Bible. But if we don't live it, if all we do is talk about it and think about it, but and read about it, but we don't put it into action, I mean, what are we doing with it? Are we just using it for philosophical debating? Or are we using this knowledge, the studying, the plans, the guides, and preaching from the Bible to lead others to God and guide others closer and closer to God, because they see our walk on a daily basis, whether it is perfect or not, because perfection is when we get to heaven. That's it. Once we have been blessed by God and we get to heaven, that's when we have reached perfection. But until then, we are still a work in progress, and God is always working on us, always working through us, and always working to strengthen us. So Romans, I mean, we're all I can recall as I'm reading today were that was a big deal. Romans were great at debating and I should say biblically, mind you, biblical references to Rome and Romans. Great theology and philosophy and debate, and great at really discussing, because the learnedness, their level of learned habits, work ethic when it comes to studying and understanding and discussing and really throwing things out there and thinking out to I guess the phrase outside of the box, and then others discussing that with them has always been, I believe, held in high regard. But we can do that, but if we don't put it into action, then are we actually affecting our own lives in a positive fashion, because we are following through, holding his word true to our hearts, binding it to our hearts, binding it to our tongue, binding it to our soul, so that we hold it close and we understand the differences, and we work with that understanding and lean on our Heavenly Father to grow in our spiritual walk. And our spiritual walk is also our daily worship, as we sacrifice our control over our lives and bring any concerns and all moments of joy to our Heavenly Father, recognizing him when we see that he has worked in something, going back and thinking about our walk, and going through and thinking about the things that we may have stumbled through, and recognizing where our blessings actually were and where they ended up right now. Those are part of our spiritual walk. That's part of our daily worship as well. Recognizing where he has blessed us and being satisfied and like, whoa, God, did you really just do that? Did I finally see where your hand was in this picture? How beautiful is that? It's beautiful. It's stunning. So today's reading, keeping this very close because I want to really stay under 10 minutes. Songs of Solomon, chapter 3. And it is, quote, "Who is this coming out of the wilderness? Like pillars of smoke, perfumed with myrrh and fragrant incense, with all the merchants' fragrant powders." Songs of Solomon, chapter 3, verse 6. Okay, coming out of the wilderness, like pillars of smoke. Who always appeared as pillars of smoke but our Heavenly Father, right? God watching out for us. And the perfume of myrrh and fragrant incense and the fragrant powders. Who brought all of that to the Magi but the three wise men? Not wives, but wise. The three wise men. As I'm reading this verse, that's the picture that popped into my head. Very visual, like, hey, our Heavenly Father came as this column. And you think, how would that star guide someone? But a straight line to where baby Jesus was already born. A column. How cool is that? So, that is my Bible reading. Songs of Solomon, chapter 3, verse 6. And I'm hoping to get to the point where I can again continue to dedicate time each day to spending time in the Word and wallowing in the information that I receive, doing my research, and keeping my heart, my ears, and my eyes open for my Heavenly Father to see where he wants to work, where he is choosing to work, where he is choosing to soften my heart and to open opportunities for me to grow. Painful sometimes when you grow. But to really just remember to stay dedicated and focused on him, no matter what happens in our day-to-day lives. So many blessings are always, mercies are always renewed each day, but many blessings upon your day tomorrow. That maybe he will whisper a beautiful word of encouragement into your heart and into your spirit, lift you high in a moment where you think you can go no lower, that he lifts you even higher. Good night.